All right, guys, so back in extracting the square. These are going to be a little bit more difficult of problems, all right? You're going to have to reduce your square roots when you get all done with this. So once again, if you guys think you know what you're doing, all right, go ahead and give it a whirl. All right, see if you can pause the video, go ahead, solve all three of them, see if you can get it right. Okay, I'll walk you through these. If you think you might be struggling, all right, maybe watch the first one, see how it goes. All right, then try the rest on your own. So let's begin with A then. All right, so they're going to be the first step for solving for A. I guess I didn't write it here, but we are solving on all three of these problems. All right, so we're going to be solving. I got to get x by itself. I have x squared, no other x's. It's going to be extracting the square. All three of these problems are actually going to be extracting the square. Remember, I have x inside my parentheses, all squared, no other x's. All right, on B over here, I have x inside the parentheses, all squared, no other x's. A, I got x squared, no other x's. All right, so first step here, getting x squared by itself is going to be subtracting the 3. So I got 5, x squared equals the number 60. At which point we can just divide both sides by 5. 60 divided by 5 is 12. Okay. Now I got x squared equals 12. All I got to do to get rid of that squared is just do a little plus or minus on both sides when I square root. Plus or minus, plus or minus. So my square root cancels with my squared. I'm left with x. Over here is going to equal plus or minus. All right, now the square root of 12, though. That actually reduces. It's not a perfect square like the problems that we've done earlier today. Okay, so I got to reduce 12. Square root of 12. Remember, if you have no idea, all right, I do realize it's an even number. You could say it's the square root of 2, square root of 6. And then 6 is also an even number. You can break that guy down a little bit further. All right, giving you the square root of 2 and the square root of 3. We still have the square root of 2. Okay? Square root of 2 times square root of 2 makes a normal 2. Square roots of 3. So x actually equals plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. That will be your answer for your first problem. If you left it x equals plus or minus square root of 12, that technically is correct, but I always need you to be reducing your square roots if they do reduce. All right? Let's move on to B then. Everyone's friend is a fraction. At least that's kind of my only friend. I do have the x plus 4 in my square root, or not my square root, it's in my square. I need to get that part by itself. All right, I'm going to do that by first adding 8 to both sides. So I get 1/2. I got x plus 4. All squared is going to equal the number 40. Okay, from there, what I want to do is I could divide both sides by 1/2 if you're using a calculator. A better way I want you guys thinking about this is we're multiplying by 1 over 2. So if I multiply by 2 over 1, what happens is those 2's cancel. I'm multiplying both sides by 2 over 1. 2 over 1 is really just 2. Multiply by 2. And there you go. They got it, you know? Yeah, you know. X plus 4 squared equals 40 times 2 is 80. Okay, here I got to get rid of that squared, so I square root both sides, remembering my plus or minus. I'll try red this time. How does red show up on there? Oh, it's kind of iffy. Yeah, make it really thick there. There you go. All right, so we square root both sides. Got to do that plus or minus, leaving us with an x plus 4. Remember, the square root cancels with your squared, so we're just left with x plus 4 equals plus or minus 80. Well, that 80 is in the square root. Okay, the last step is you're just going to add, or not add, you're going to get rid of the plus 4 by subtracting 4. X equals -4 plus or minus the square root of 80. Now, guys, if 80 does not reduce, that would be your final answer. However, 80 does reduce in our square root. So I got to try to reduce that. Let's go up here, square root of 80. Okay, what goes in the 80? I'm not really sure what perfect square goes in there, so let's take out a 2. 2 and 40. 40 is another even number. I can take out another 2. Square root of 2. Square root of 20. And we got a square root of 2. Remember, as soon as you have square roots and you get a pair of them, it turns into a normal number. Square root of 2 turns into a normal 2. All right, but 20 actually reduces just a little bit more. Square root of 20. Hey, I see a 4 goes in there. Square root of 4, square root of 5. Square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 5 times that normal 2. So now we got a normal 2 times a normal 2 times the square root of 5. 2 times 2 makes 4. 4 square roots of 5. So my answer way over here is going to be x equals -4 plus or minus 4 square roots of 5. All right. There you have it. It doesn't reduce anymore. Okay. We got one last and final problem, then you guys should be able to handle all of your homework tonight. All right. So this last problem, oops, erase part of it there. I've got this in a little bit different order than I have in the past. All right. I could actually rewrite this, and it's going to look much more similar to our last problem that we just did. Let's make that back to 25 there. There we go. Okay, this is really a +9 out front. We're just, as mathematicians, we're too lazy to write that plus in front of the 9. I threw this 9 out front to kind of throw you guys off. It doesn't really matter which order we write this in. This is really the same thing as -2 times x plus 1 all squared plus 9 equals 25. Okay? You don't have to do this step. You could just subtract 9. If you see this 9 out here, like, oh yeah, I just got to subtract 9 on both sides. If you see that, go for it. If not, maybe you want to rewrite this. As I said, these are 3 more difficult problems. All right, so here, what I want to do is, like I said, subtract 9. You get a -2. X plus 1 all squared is going to equal 25 minus 9 is lucky number 16. Next, I got to get rid of that -2. Now, it's not a -2, it's -2 times because there's no symbol between the -2 and the parentheses. So what we need to do is actually divide by the number -2. So I've got an x plus 1 all squared. 16 divided by -2. Well, 16 divided by 2 is 8. A positive divided by a negative makes a negative. A negative is very, very important here. All right, so next I got my x plus 1 all squared by itself, so I can just simply square root both sides. Now, when I square root both sides, I got a plus or minus. So I'm left with x plus 1 is going to equal plus or minus the square root of -8. Now, if you guys recall, the square root of a negative number would be imaginary. Okay? There are answers, but they are technically not real. They're not a real number, they're an imaginary number. We're not going to get too in depth with this, but as soon as you see that, you can just say x, or not even x equals, you just say no real solution. There are solutions, they're just not a real number, so we could say no real solution. That's a funny looking one, I need to fix that. How about that? A little bit better. No real solution. Can't just say no solution. You have to say no real solution because there actually are imaginary solutions, like I said. On your test, I said I'd give you guys a little bit of extra credit if you actually reduce this fully. Okay? Some of you did that. I want to go over it again. Guys, if you're struggling, just forget that. Just say no real solution, be done. That's okay. That's fine by me. Okay, but if you really want to challenge yourself, push yourself, what you want to do is kind of reduce this. So I would subtract 1, x equals -1 plus or minus the square root of -8. Okay, now I need to reduce the square root of -8. Square root of -8, all right, is really the square root of 4, the square root of 2, and the square root of -1. Okay? You always have to have, if this is a negative, you have to have that -1. All right, because the thing is, the square root of -1 is the imaginary number I. So square root of -1 turns into I. Square root of 2 does not reduce, but 4 does. 4 turns into a 2. Square root of 2 just gets carried down. Okay? So all of that, the square root of -8 is really just 2. Square roots of 2, I. Okay, that's not your answer because there was that -1 out front. Our final answer would then be x equals -1 plus or minus 2 square roots of 2, I. Okay? Like I said, don't worry about this if you're struggling, but if you want to push yourself a little bit, go for it. Have yourself a ball. All right, you guys should be able to handle all of your homework tonight. Good luck with that.